welcome everyone. Let me welcome, without necessarily mentioning or singling out people, but we're quite honored to have sitting in here in the front row our delegation from the Republic of Senegal. We've also got Michael here, who is from the American Chamber of Commerce. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming. I'm just worried that there are no ladies here. I'm very worried. I think next time we should make sure that there's a cross-pollination. I also want to just acknowledge Utatu Seth Mazibuko over there. So Utatu Seth is one of the people that during June 1976 was one of the activists who were there live and in front. So Mdomtala, we just want to acknowledge, if you can just rise so that people can see you. I think this is a stalwart. He's been through, he's seen a lot, he's been through a lot, so really, really appreciative. And also, I'm just acknowledging everyone. If I were to acknowledge everyone, each one of you, we certainly would be here the whole night. So just to maybe kick things off, I think what we're going to do, we're just going to do introductions, but here's how we're going to do introductions, because it's important that we all know each other. Now, you see, for an example like this table, these people know each other. I'm very worried. So the point is that the first thing is that, can people that know each other go to somewhere that you don't know? Can we do that? And I know who knows who and who doesn't know who. Can we do that cross-sitting, please? No. Guys, I'm going to call you out. Okay. So if you, can I just ask then that there's really 3 questions that I would like for you guys just to deliberate upon in just introducing yourself, right? And it's just going to be, just pick maybe 5 people around you, just groups of 5. And there's 3 questions that I want you guys to answer amongst the group. And there's going to be prizes for people that can remember in depth about the rest of the 4 people. There's going to be prizes, beautiful prizes. So here's question number 1. No, hold on. Here's question number 1. So if you couldn't fail, what would you be doing? So if you could not fail, 0, what would you be doing? Do we get question number 1? Did we get it? Did we get it? Okay. The second one, if you had $1 billion, what would you be doing? Remember, you can't fail. You've got $1 billion. What would you be doing? And on top of that, you've got 6 months to live. Did we get the 3 questions? Who's not clear about the questions? Eh? So if you had 6 months to live, 3 questions, all right. So can I ask that we're going to spend just 5 or so minutes, and whoever remembers the most, but go into depth, right? Don't go and just, please make sure, okay, we've got 5 minutes. Let's go ahead. Okay, guys, can we do the exercise, please? Yeah. Can we do the exercise? Can you see from our side, can they write questions? So this is what let's go to the okay, and then second, what comment questions? So I'll also ask them to announce it here. I think it's the indicator. Okay. You guys have had your 5 minutes. Okay, 5 more minutes is fine. 5 more minutes. And to the guys online, can I also ask you just to introduce yourselves? The guys online, please just introduce yourself in the comments corner. So, okay, we're going to start here. Sis Kwaita, go ahead, please.
Okay.
If you don't mind standing up, just maybe introduce yourself, who are you, and then the rest.
Okay. I'm Kwaita Matikizela. So I have Belinda. What Belinda will do if she were to have 6 months to live is to invest all her time in people development. She would then progress with her mentorship that she's been trying to do in the fashion industry. If she had $1 billion, she would then also invest a lot of that money into that portion of her pet peeve. And then, I've covered you, right? And then Musa. So Musa would do exactly what he does. If he had 6 months to live and he had $1 billion, he would continue on the vein of, so he feels that his life has always been a wing and a prayer. So he'll continue on that vein. And what would you do with your 6 months? He'll travel the world.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Palesa Babili, and I'll start with me. So if I had 6 months to live, I would not sleep in the same city until I die. If I had $1 billion, I would, and I had to do something that I couldn't fail at, I would feed everybody in the world. So I'd probably be known as that girl who made the world obese. So yeah. And here we have Billy. Billy would sail. If he had 6 months to live, he would sail until he dies. With the $1 billion, he would... No, you're sailing. So already you bought the yard. He would fix Eskom. That's what he would fix Eskom. So with all the infrastructure and resources and human capital that's required, so that's the $1 billion, and if he had to do something that he wouldn't fail, And here we have Michael. So Michael, firstly, he would drink, number one. So he's from Eldo, he's colored, and he would pay tribute to his culture, he would drink. Two, he would build rehabilitation centers for every township in the country to deal with drug addiction for the $1 billion. And if he had something, if he could do something and he wouldn't fail, so he would build in each and every township in the world, he would build a rehabilitation center to deal with the drug program. Here we have Sipogazi. She would be on the beach until she dies. So regardless of which beach, if there's wind and rain, she will be chasing summer everywhere until she dies. For the $1 billion, she would try to change the world by educating children, bringing education systems to every child in the world. And that also feeds into something that she could do without fail. And Sanela, who went to the bathroom, oh, there she is. She would build a theater in her hometown in the Eastern Cape and promote arts and culture, because that's something she's very passionate about. With the $1 billion, if she could do something and she wouldn't fail, she would learn everything she can't do now. So guaranteed. And for the 6 months of her life, she would buy all the LVs in the world and Gucci's. And that is the 5 of us. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we're going to go to the back there. Can I ask, each group, can you be 6 or 7? 1, 2, 3 is not going to work. Just 6 or 7 people, you introduce 6 or 7 people. At the very back.
At the back.
Those queens, yeah, those queens at the back.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sia Matigane. To answer the question, if I couldn't fail, I would open a digital radio station that broadcasts throughout the world, and I would use the $1 billion to do that, and then I would make sure that it's fully functional by the time I die in 6 months. It's my 3 questions. Vanessa, right next to me here, Nkubela, she would spend the money traveling the world.
So already you've lost the plot. You've lost the plot already. You see, you've got the A team there of very powerful women. Men in this regard are very weak. Please hand over to the ladies to do it.
Oh my word, this is bad. Okay, I'm not traveling the world. Oh, should also use some of the money to fix ESCOM. And then Pumza, Jani, right next to me, she would use it to feed the poor, and then some of it to travel, and then hopefully she dies in the 6 months. And then, and then Zaini Ngukwana, she would use the money for skills development and to travel the world, or develop skills of rural communities. And then hopefully she also spends the money traveling and hopefully finishes it before she dies in 6 months.
Good evening, all. My name is Sonwabise. So some of us combined the questions. I did. I would travel and use the 1 billion to identify businesses to give them that money so they can get some funding, and I'd just die doing that. Hopefully sleeping. Udumo, he also combined, he said he would buy Formula 1 cars and he'd spend the rest of the 4 months just racing them. I think he'll be dead in 2 weeks, I don't know. Happy. Happy, what's the first question? He, if he could do anything, he would be a cricket player, number 4. $1 billion, he would go and fix Ekomani. He hates how it's looking currently. And for 6 months, he would spend time with his mother and just getting close to his mom. Ulubumba, if he could do anything, he would study AS and hopefully come up with something really like amazing, like a really cool solution. Actuarial science, what do you mean? Ah, as a smart apple. Angela doesn't hang out with fools. Ne? Stuff. Then $1 billion, he actually doesn't care. He's like, whatever. Like, it's not his thing. And then 6 months, he'd go home. He'd just go home.
Spotlight. Okay, my name's Paula Quincy from Engaged Humans. And from our table, we have Sims or Simone, Akona, Loiso, and Babs. And in terms of what we would do, so we have someone that is a space fanatic who wants to put himself into a box if he's only got 6 months to live, and when his time is up, he wants to put himself in a box and shoot off into space and live happily ever after, freezing his brain, that when he comes to the other side, they can hopefully research the human species, right? Okay. We've got Babs, who's going to take his money and he's going to go back to his village and turn it into a smart village, right? Akona is going to build a university, become the CEO of the university, and help empower and uplift the youth. She's got passion for youth. Sims, who is passionate about healthy lifestyle, so healthy eating and exercise, and she is going to help you love eating healthy and exercise, and that it just becomes part of your life and it's a fun in the process. And for myself, it's about human connection, and it's about bringing the human back into everything that we do. And so I would continue what I'm doing right now, and with the money, I would impact people's lives to bring the human back into your home and into the workplace, because I think we've lost touch with human connection. And that's it from our table.
I got bamboozled into coming here. But I don't remember most. I just got handed the mic. No. I just got handed the mic, and well, I had to write down people's names. Sve, Dali, Kutloano, myself, Ditsaho, Abdul, and Sonke. We're at that table there. We kind of had a group agreement that we would all give the money away and live on what we can for the time that we have left. One of our members very cheekily said that he would buy Eskom and resolve load shedding, and then the additional cherry was that we should all travel. So that was about it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jean from Good Governance Africa. I'm sitting right here with these beautiful people. Not you, but the others. You're beautiful though. Yes, so, right, I'm just gonna go around what my teammates said, or my table mate. So one of them said that they will ensure that they become like Minister of Happiness and make sure that every single person in the world can experience the joy and happiness no matter what. That's how they're gonna use the money. I said I'm gonna do me for like 4 months. Probably go to Vegas and experience things that I've never experienced. And then afterwards, I will probably take care of some orphans and make sure that they get enough to get an education, because people don't care about orphans most of the time. So that's what I would think about, just so I can leave a legacy and people can remember me. And there was a similar idea as well from one of my teammates who said that for the first 4 months as well, he's going to do him. And then after that, he's going to make sure that the children are taken care of, his family builds some trust and everything. And what else was there? Yes, same thing. There was another one that say that they won't do anything. They will just focus on their health, to make sure that they are good. And but in general, we were talking about, just giving back so that some people can be happy, But the first thing that came to mind was family, taking care of the family, because 6 months is not a lot of time. Thank you.
Yoni?
Hello, guys. What a great honor to be here tonight. I first want to give a big hug to my brother next to me. We sat next to each other in primary school. This is it's a very emotional and a very proud moment for him and for me to see that we've grown up from competing on 1 + 1 = 2. But here we are now. He's the grown man. I'm in my corner there, little corner, and we did our whole summary. And I've got Tapelo there. And please do meet Tapelo, especially for the black entrepreneurs who might be in the room. They do enterprise development. They support small black businesses in growing and scaling up their businesses. So he's here right now to welcome. They've got lots of funds to dish out for good businesses. And let's just give him a round of applause that they can do that. So Tapelo being recently married, you can imagine what his inspirations are. He says that if he had 6 months to live, he would want to go and have an experience of life with his wife. And that means beauty, culture, travel, food, arts, the festivals, everything globally. So Tapelo, we wish you all of that if that would happen. I'll move over to my new boss, Kinelwe. And for her, if she had $1 billion even rands, let's not even talk dollars, $1 billion rands, she would like to reclaim the land of her people in Tabancho. And she'd want to get that land back for her people and plow and grow back and give to it. And if she had a change of mind of what she wants to do for career, she still says she'd like to still stay employed with me. But you can understand, she's just saying that because I'm here, right, guys? Tapelo equally says if he had a billion rands, he would want to just get the black tax out of his way. He'd want to set up his whole family, kill all of their debt. Nobody must have debt anymore, and they must be able to be self-sustainable so his new marriage can flourish without black tax. I appreciate that. And personally for me, if I could do anything with $1 billion rands, it will be split towards 2 things. Malcolm, I never got to meet you, but can I meet you? I just heard of your name. Who was Malcolm about the rehabilitation centers in South Africa? It was a Mike. Yeah, sorry, Mike, I made a mistake. Mike, I would work alongside you, and I would make sure that they cater for what I call the biggest disaster that faces our country, which is the psychological safety of our people, which is depression, it's anxiety, it's post-traumatic stress disorder, and COVID has not helped in the least. I would support your cause fully. And the rest, I'd give you half. The rest of that, I would support orphanages in South Africa. I'm standing here as a mother of 2 adopted children. My youngest one is turning 5 in June, and adopted from Dove's Nest in Pretoria. I would give Dove's Nest that to have an education center for the children, that they learn technology, and that their aspirations are not like us, of doctors or a lawyer, but rather have IT skills, artificial intelligence, and all that's required for the future. If I had 6 months to live, I'd move to Inyambane in Mozambique, and I'd spend that 6 months on the beach walking with my husband and my daughter. And Andile, I'm proud of you, and I love you.
Uyoni was giving a keynote speech there. Maybe I must sit my ass down. Sonwabo, Anda, who's the representative? Lenth, Dion? Oh, were you guys spoken for? No, I'm watching you guys. Okay, let's go to Marilyn. Are you representing?
Yes, I am. Evening, my name is Marilyn. White Hadebe. I've got Lynn over here. Len, in fact, I think this is a group of control freaks. It's all about sorting out. That's something we all said. For the first 3 months, we'll sort out our business in terms of wills, who gets what, funeral, who mustn't do what, must do what. That's something we all agreed upon. Next 3 months was bucket list, whatever the bucket list consists of. In terms of spending the 1 billion, Len and I were in agreement that, you know, it will be spent on education centers for particularly women and girls. And Uvuyo would be spending the 1 billion on socioeconomic activities, especially concerning entrepreneurs, because that is something she's involved in terms of ESD. And then the last thing, the one thing we will not fail at, Len and I were in agreement that that would be parenting, and Uvuyo here is said it's her personal development. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason why you see us skeptical as to whether we're going to have the mic or not, it is purely because we sat here and we tried to dissect what does the word failure mean actually? And because, well, we believe that we don't necessarily fail, but we learn lessons along the way. But eventually we got to say, okay, well, he would go back to his hometown and try and develop the community and make a difference there. And also, he then said he's not even sure if he failed at his PhD thing, but he thinks he would like to try that again. But, you know, along the way, and still not accepting that we're failing, that he's learned so many things. So that PhD thing is not really that a big deal, but nevertheless, yeah. And you said you would go back and also develop, give money to charity, I think that's what he said. And there's also traveling of the world that I mentioned, and I think, what else did you mention? Digital skills, yes, digital skills. That's what he would do. And I said I would really just build a school. I think that's the most important thing. And like I said, we really just got stuck at failing thing. We're not failures. We just learn many lessons as we go along.
Saz, did I get it wrong? But I didn't hear you mentioning the people's names. Or was it just me?
Oh,
It's very important to remember the people's names.
Oh, that's Cecil there, and Magabongo, I think this gentleman here.
Okay, yeah, so before you guys start, you see, there's this table, né? Like I said, these guys haven't eaten medication, yeah, high, in their low blood, so we just want to make sure these senior citizens, we just engage them. I'm not sure who's going to be a representative, but I'm very worried, either way.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Andile, for the invite. My name is Mutibi Ramusi. Oh, okay. Yeah, good evening once more. My name is Mutibi Ramusi. I'm representing the veterans of the ICT industry on this table. So, yeah, I think if one fails, really, we just need to make sure that we empower the youth. And I think a similar engagement like tonight, it's what will make sure that it happens all the time. And more especially to avoid self-entitlement. You know, these things of grants. We don't encourage that. And obviously, with $1 billion, we'll change the regime anything that doesn't work, we change with that money for a good purpose. And I think that's what, because it's all in the mindset, and it must be a radical change, but in a responsible manner. That's what we'll do. And most importantly, because health is important, we will build health facilities to make sure that we stay for more than 6 months. Otherwise, if we don't have that health facility, we'll die. Yeah. It's what has to happen. Keep yourself alive forever so that you continue to do the good things. And yeah, with the 6 months, it will be a continuous transformation, engagement, like as we're doing it tonight, so that the youth can take over from the veterans here. And Mongezi, he's here. Of all what I just said, he'll make sure that he saves all the good things for the future. And I have Elijah here. Elijah believes in spending. So that money of building the health center, that's what he's going to do with that money. And Trevor, I've got Trevor. Trevor is an investor, investing in human capital mind. That's what Trevor will do. The same with Tom. Tom is our eldest, and he tells us that as an older person, you need to make sure that there's continuous life. So that's what he'll invest in. And lastly, Malemani, he's a very quiet man. He'll just make sure that he stays to make people that are organized, like tonight. So that's our group, and that's from the elders, from the veterans. Thank you.
Yeah, you see, I was expecting one of these, when you're walking to the stage, but you can see they're fresh. So speaking about a health center, so let me help them with the health center. Simi, come here, please. So Simi is going to, for this table, Simi, please. Can you arrange sessions for them? Just explain what you do and the vouchers that you're going to give these senior citizens. Again, we don't want them to be a makroko. Please.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Sims, or Simone, everyone calls me Sims, and my studio is in Broadacres, Fourways, and I have created this beautiful program where I've literally studied heart, brain, and the physique of women specifically, and men, and I've created a program that takes, well, if you think of health and diet, what do you think? You want to run away, right? So I have literally created a program where your food is amazing and exercise is exciting, and people are getting addicted to it, where they see physical and psychological and emotional change in their lives, where in their own families and in their own businesses, just because they are becoming the best version of themselves, they are more productive in their families, they're more productive in their businesses, environments, and in their relationships. So it is such an honor, and I actually stand here with goosebumps, where it is so life-changing that tonight I said to Andile, I have literally 100 vouchers for every single one of you, where you can come to my studio and I'll do a complimentary body assessment for you to see if you need more protein or water or whatever you need. I'm there to give it to you complimentary tonight, and you will get a free session, as well as a eating lifestyle plan. So all my plans are literally pH balanced, and it's literally there to see body results and change your life and reset your age genetics to make us younger and more productive in every area of our lives. So, so it is such an honor to be here. And yeah, I think I met Andile like 8 years ago, and it was a beautiful connection. So I'm all about life change and impacting not only your businesses, but your families and your quality relationships. And it is completely life-changing. So your vouchers will be handed out. So thank you for this beautiful opportunity. And you are VIP as soon as you walk up those stairs at Strength in Motion. And yeah, that's what I am.
Simi, you actually gave it away because I wanted it to be special for these senior citizens. You mustn't speak about what we spoke about. But, and we're going to come to the rest of it. Thanks, Simi. So you know, when we speak about leadership with a soul, right? This is the kind of things that we're speaking to when people put their hands up and say, you know what, how can we contribute towards the group? Because you can imagine that that particular voucher probably costs about 1.5 to 2,000 rands, right? But, you know, she's willing to sacrifice for each and every person that is here because she's saying, I want to put my hand up. I want to be part of this movement. So, Simi, can you give her a round of applause, please? And I mean, I must say that this is not a pitch-a-thon. You know, hence I said I just wanted you to give these 6, but you know, I give you all. Can we go back to? There's a group that needed to introduce themselves.
All right. Thank you, Andile. So, I've been jacked by another group, so now I also have to introduce them. So we have Pila, we have Linda, and we have Tsidiso. And then we have myself, Pumla. We have, as he introduced himself, Old Man Seth, otherwise known as Braseth. And we have Viwe and we have Zooks, right? So in terms of what we would do with our spare time, oh, Faith, I'm sorry. Because I've been hijacked, so I overlooked you. Sorry about that. Quickly, what we would do with our $1 billion humanitarian work, and I'm not going to specify who would do that, but there's a focus on humanitarian work. There's a focus on fixing ESCOM. There's a focus on youth entrepreneurship. There's a focus on dealing with the, is it the lost middle lost? What's that thing? Tertiary education for the lost middle. You know, providing bursaries for that. And then Viewer was quite interested in how our youth seems to be lost in terms of their career choices. And she would want to spend time, her money rather, or her $1 billion focusing on how we support youth with making the right career choices, things that will make them happy and live happily ever after. And in terms of what we would do within the 6 months, it was all about self, focusing on family, grandkids. We won't say who would be grandkids, but there's that as well. Living on an island and dancing her life away, and traveling with family. That was important. And yeah, I hope that's it. Thank you.
Is there any group that we haven't done? No, we're coming here. Oh, shucks, yeah. That side.
Thanks, Antile. So the name Malcolm was brought up, so I'm Malcolm. So in our group, we have Anthony, who has a passion for waterways and conservation of waterways. So if he couldn't fail, he would find a solution to clean up all the waterways. And then in his last 6 months, he would spend his life fishing those waterways. Then Sandy would design a gadget for humans to fly on their own. And she would spend $1 million commercializing the human flight. And she would make sure that she does that within her 6 months that she's got left to live. And then Jabulani has a passion for empowering the youth, and so he would find solutions for the youth to become empowered, and then also in his 6 months find opportunities for those youth to pay it forward, so that he increases the empowerment of the youth. And then Jabulile would set up oncology hospitals in rural areas, in rural communities, and she would find partners in the 6 months that will help her to make the $1 billion go even further. And on my side, if I couldn't fail, I'd take the $1 billion and invest it to make $3 billion. And I would use that to do my passion, and that's connecting small businesses to corporates. And in my last 6 months, I'd spent my time traveling the world running marathons. Good, that's me.
Okay, so we've done everyone, né? Okay, so we're going to, so we've got the table of senior citizens here, né? And then we've got the table of serious people here. So, and you can see, Mos, that the serious people have got suits. You know, so being the diplomats that they are, you know. So, Mr. Moma, maybe I must ask you, first of all, just to introduce, everyone that is here, and then whatever the outcomes of the deliberations were that you had. You see, I'm using big words, deliberations. It's very important. Oh, will it be this side? Okay. So, perfect. If you don't mind coming this way and just introducing each of the people that are here.
Hello, everyone. Excuse my emotion. Cameras, English. I come from Senegal. Those three gentlemen come from the Senegalese embassy. And Momar Tala to the far left. Here you have Abdurrahman and Michael from the American government. And my brother, that's not me, I have anything electronic. And my brother, Lita from South Africa around. I guess he's from Soundton. So we didn't have a lot of time because this question was raising a lot of other questions. Because only 1 billion, it will finish one day, 6 months. You may die, and from upside be blessing the guys. And also, we tried to think as a group, which was not so easy. So, due to our different backgrounds, I am a military guy. You have a politician and diplomat. You have an economic and judicial. Themselves, very serious guys. He works even from his perspective from a tech company, partner of Microsoft, which gave us food and drinks, thanks to Microsoft and to Andile. So I will try to be military, just synthetic, more synthetic. Not easy for me, but it was question of putting the world at peace, because we have two sides. Or you are negotiating the peace, or you are making war. My favorite part. So if we had not to fail, we would put the world at peace and take the $1 billion and divide it in $20,000 and have 50,000 startups in the whole world and founding them for them to work. But as my friend Lita said, if you can hire experts to see all the problems of Africa and solve them, with even 1 billion, it will still be tricky. But don't forget the first question. If you could not fail, we would just not die. We will invest. We would invest the $1 billion and never die in 6 months. And never die. Thank you.
No, my good sir, you need to come back. Né? Because you need to explain, or will you explain what it is that you guys do within the embassy, what Michael does, please. I think it's quite important. So that we do have a formal introduction of the extremely suited militaristic, that English people.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sani Bonani Makaya. Molweni. Huyanot Manirendama. Well, I happen to be living in South Africa a bit. And first and foremost, I would like to thank Mr. Andile for the initiative. In a sense that the topic is quite meditating when we talk about leaders and soul. Now, I am in the company of our first advisor. We call him a deputy ambassador, who is Mr. Traore, as well as Mr. Michael. We met here, but he's one of the representatives of the United States of America consulate here in Johannesburg. And Mr. Vas, is actually our colonel, is our military representative within the embassy, and to extend it to the representative of Microsoft. Now, Andile, when we received your email, we had a task of meditating on two important issues. Leadership, meaning inviting others to follow suit, but the soul which will last forever. Now, coming to the question of failure, debatable. What are we referring to? Failure within our studies, failure within our conduct within the family household. Even though I've been told that you have never actually failed in your life, I will be actually raising a question to motivate myself further to make better days. Because if there is a plus, a minus will make sense for it to exist. So therefore, when we talk about failure, definitely that is what is motivating us to try to climb the ladder higher. Now coming to $1 billion, and we are having a referential being the United States of America currency being in dollars. When we come to $1 billion, we're talking about money. And usually they say money talks. Investors are needed for things to happen. Now, being a Pan-African, I will be meditating on the 54 African countries, because that's really where we have serious questions, to the extent of the Millennium Challenge Corporation, which has been funded by the United States. Now, when we talk about 6 months to live, I make a correlation. 6 months to live, we're talking about 180 days. I will be dividing my 180 days to the 54 countries in Africa, where I will be spending 3 days to focus on 3 major or 4 major issues. Making sure that the 60% arable field we have in Africa for the world, actually Africa has 60% of arable land which can be exploited for the basic of living, agriculture, so that will ensure that when we are hungry we can eat. To be able to drink, as well as medical attention, sufficient health care. I think COVID should be a wake-up call for Africa. And lastly, but not least, is education. Once our peers, our kids, our grandchildren are educated, wherever we have gone, what we can only do is the very small portion of the $1 billion will be left for them to take care of the arable actually lands, as well as to make sure that it grows, and that NGOs or even volunteers can help. Because each and every investment, the sole target is actually to last forever, and that's why our soul will last forever. When I talk about 4664, each and every mind will go to Utata. I salute you, Sanibonani Makaya. Thank you.
Yeah, you know people that are always prepared, ne? These are the kind of people, you can see that they sit on global stages. Again, we've finished everyone. So maybe, I was doing an interview yesterday and also just before I came here. And part of what the people were saying was that, and this is, remember that, the interview, so the first one was Umhlobwenene, which is largely, yes, a lot of Joburg, but largely Eastern Cape, Xhosa based. And so what they were saying was that, look, it's all well and good. We understand, or sorry, not we understand, but we think we understand, or we think we hear about these endeavors. But the one theme that came out is, who the hell are you? Because sometimes it's important that you back, what do they call it? You back the jockey, not the horse. So, and I think that there's a number of people that, are here for the first time. So if you'll allow me just to maybe take about 5 minutes just to maybe introduce myself. So lona ke ngumntana wasesithathwini nguchisana ngusithathu ngundebe ukhopho inkomo zibomvu zinganyama zaxhelwa. So I usually, because the question which, and I'm going to reflect on the questions that were asked earlier on. Part of the questions was, what was your inspiration to want to galvanize people such as yourself, or leaders such as yourself, around leadership with the soul? And I said to them, is the unfortunate part for me, and those that know me, I've been on this journey for the longest time, without financial compensation, because it's something that is within me. And I say to them that, some people, what is breastfed? That's the one. So some people are breastfed with milk. Unfortunately, I was breastfed with leadership. Let me help you understand that. So for me, if I look at my bloodline on paternal and maternal side, so on the paternal side, when I take my great-grandfather, and Ngamane, you must go and verify this if it's a lie in our pramongs. So my great-grandfather was one of the people that designed the flag, the ANC flag, right? And I think I told you this. And one of the people that, even before it became the ANC, were part of the deliberations. I'll call it the deliberations. I'm not going to say there was a founding, what, none of that, but, part of that, part of that movement. And so for me, it starts there. Now, let me go on to my maternal side. So I then have my great-grandfather, who back in the days, being a teacher was something that was held in high regard. If you remember, well, if you can't remember, but senior citizens, I'm sure they are reincarnated. I'm sure they were there. I'm sure it's reincarnation. But being a teacher during those days was something that was almost the equivalent of an oncologist, one of those specialists. And so, from his side, was able to convince the missionaries that were there to start a school in Ngambele, which is where we come from, our bloodline comes from. And so, school principal starts a school over there, which is great. Now, my grandfather then was the first black magistrate for the Transkei region. Now, I say these things not to boast, but just to help you to understand that for me, this is something that is not a lucky bucket project. It's not something, Michael, that I woke up and I decided that, oh, shucks, you know what, I want to come and BS people. For me, it's something that is deep and core and it's within. Just to maybe give you an example, I remember my grandmother. So at my grandfather's house where, we grew up, where's my sister, Con? Oh, she's outside, yeah, in case so that she holds my facts correct. So what she did was she actually kicked out my grandfather's car to be outside such that the garage is used for a preschool. Now, a preschool then was for the entire community because we live in a place where we live there's abject poverty around. Sis Jeps, when I get in Ngambedlana, Sis Jeps is my older sister, and and so so I went to school at garage. For me, it was literally 2 steps, and then I'm in the living room. Yeah, so others, unfortunately, had to travel for 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers, but she went and made sure that her giving back was on something that was a passion for her, which was teaching. And making sure that she actually makes sure that all the people, all the children who do not, or the parents, do not have the necessary means or the facility are able to become educated because education was a passion. Now let's take another example, and it's just me, introducing myself to you because I think about KC, they know me at Microsoft, but they haven't met the other side where I gather with crowds like this. I call them leaders with a soul so that you understand the core, because a number of you guys have heard me saying that when I'm in, and Upra Mutibi will attest to this. When I speak to him, I tell him that I am a I am a public servant. I am a citizen before I am a corporate professional. What does that mean? So I work at Microsoft. Our offices are here in Bryanston. As soon as, those are ivory towers. Let's be very clear. Those are very nice offices, all ivory towers. As soon as I get out of the comfort of that gate, the citizenry is enacted, because what happens is that if there's crime at the robots, if there's ESCOM, if there's all of those things, where there's no generators, this is where I then get affected. And this is what keeps me up at night, is how do I make sure that we're able to solve those issues? When we speak about leadership with a soul, and we'll get into the leadership with a soul concept, something that's very passionate to me. Because when I speak about leadership with a soul is how do you make sure that it's, in fact, they call it active citizenry. There's big words that they use. But how do you make sure that you are able to use whatever resource that you have for the betterment of the country? So when I sell technology, in my, in my career, I'd like to hope so, or think, is my soul is vested in Ngambele. And so when I say that I want to propose a particular solution, for me, what's in mind is that solving a problem for my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and otherwise? If it's not, and it's only benefiting myself and my immediate family, then there's a problem. So when I speak about leadership of the soul, are we vested in our communities? Are we vested spiritually? Because that's very important. Are we vested spiritually within our communities? Because what then happens is that if you are vested, and this is always, I don't know what the English word is, but umvandetwa. Someone can maybe give me English. Perhaps, what's the English umvandetwa? No, it's not intuition, man. No, it's not. You know, when you sleep at night, you're able to sleep nice. I mean, yeah, conscience. Yes. Oh, apologies. No, apologies. So for me, guys, now I promise you now, I sleep with my sliding door open. I sleep with my windows open, because there's no hawks that are coming after me. No, I'm very clear. There's no hawks coming after me, and I sleep wide open. Well, of course, there's mosquitoes. I mean, damn it, those things. Hey, it's a problem. Hey, these days, I don't know what's going on, but yeah, it is yet too. And so for me, when we speak about, and this is what we are going to get into, so when we speak about leadership with the soul, how are we as a collective, because unfortunately, there's no one or two or three people, but as a collective, everyone that is here, how are we then able to contribute positively towards our society in South Africa? How are we, from an African point of view, right? Let me rephrase that. Continentally, because sometimes we make the mistake and say we've got South Africa and the rest of Africa, or whatever we call it. That is the biggest BS I've ever had, right? There's only one continent. I don't know. Some people can go and live in the rest of Africa, but for me, I live in Africa. So we must be very clear about that. So how do we make sure that we're able to do the right things for the continent to progress and upgrade themselves from what we call the dark continent? Michael, from the American Chamber, for an example, is, and it was very important, and I'm really honored that you're here. But for me, I think for you to understand the national discourse within South Africa, because Michael, I work with him, from a Microsoft point of view, but you have not met people from a civic society point of view. You meet Andile from a business point of view. And so the feeling that you have, I don't want for you, when you go back into the embassy, for you to have the feeling that actually, you know what, we know load shedding, we know all of those things, but yet you've got leaders around the table who are willing to put, you heard, people are saying that they want to buy Eskom, they want to do this, they want to do that, big things. Right? And so for me, it becomes also important, and I really thank you for coming. It becomes very important for you to be able to give back that message that we have got South Africans, we have got people within the continent who are saying that we are tired of being called the dark continent. We are very clear around what we need to do to be able to move. I'm sure you've seen, when they do the aerial photos, they do these aerial photographs and they've got helicopters. When you look at Africa, it's dark. And that is the biggest BS. For me, that's propaganda. That is the biggest BS. Of course, we've got challenges, but when you look at the people that are here, you then get to understand that we have got a very, very strong and capable leadership. Leaders with the soul, who are vested within where they come from. That for me is important. So now when we speak, and that was just, sorry, I diverted a bit. This is something that is very important to me and it's part of my heart. I diverted a bit. I was still introducing myself, but that's, enough of that. Now, so when we then speak about leadership with the soul, which is something that today, hosted by the Leadership with the Soul Institute, how do we, at a first starting point, this is the starting point where we galvanize and we meet. Each and every one of you, by the by, I know you. Some I know not by meeting, but your profiles. So it's not a favor. You are here because of the good work that you've been doing, but also where your soul vested. I mean, quite of an example moves from ABSA. I'm making a stupid example here. She moves from ABSA. She's now in public service. And I remember the first time I met her, I was like, are you okay upstairs? I mean, how do you do that? You know, and I mean, she's, you know, it's tough. And there's a lot of people here which are leaders with a soul, but tangibly so, things that we can touch. Because we speak about these things, and when we speak about them, it's very much theoretical. For me, is the people that I've worked with over the years have been very much hands-on. Now, there's a movement which we started called the abahlaliworld.com. Of you, they know them, but how many people know the abahlaliworld.com? By show of hands. Okay, so that's like 60% of the crowd. Now, just for the benefit of the 40% that don't know. So this was a movement that I spearheaded. I didn't, formulate. And this was, I mean, listen, okay, let me take the history. Né? So it started, so I come from Rhodes, 2000 and whatever, I can't remember the year now. Now you must understand, the Rhodes, I mean, Rhodes, there's only one street, guys. What are you gonna do? You're gonna party. There's nothing you can do. Right, I mean, really, you know. So my alcohol consumption levels were very high. And so I get to Johannesburg, and in Joburg, people like chilling in restaurants like this. And I just couldn't connect. Because for me, I want to get up on the table and drink shooters. So this for me was not, remember I was a Rose boy. So this for me was not something that was familiar. And so I then started organizing house parties. Little did I know that those house parties were the start of networking. Now, remember, these house parties will go on until 4 in the morning. I would be the last one to leave. Sometimes you pass out in the parking lot. Yeah, own it, guys. That was me. That was me. And so we then upgraded, because part of the thing was that, life is not static. As a people, we are not static. So we then moved into what we call the abahlaliworld.com. And Malcolm, I mean, has certainly been part of, the abahlaliworld.com. And the movement then was around, and this was 2009, I think, I can't remember. I was broke and I was jobless and, maybe I was bored. But I got, people that I respect that have been part of the Abahlali, it was called abahlali.com at the time. We actually sat in a boardroom and we mapped out where are we in life and what are those things that we need to start doing. In fact, even the motto or the tagline was where social revolutionaries meet to mix business and pleasure. Social revolutionaries, because a revolution is something that's painful. It has to happen overnight. So when we are at a social level, how do we make sure that that revolution, from a mindset point of view, starts happening? Because we're clear, when we say mixing business and pleasure, is we need to make sure that when we go out to the house party and we are partying hard, you can't just wake up, you've just hangover. I mean, surely you need to have business cards. And so we would force that in our gatherings, people carry business cards so that they're able to network. Now we then move to the abahlaliworld.com. And at this time, the network was about 5,000 professionals. And these were people that were very clear around, we want to help South Africa move forward. Very clear. Starting with our communities. I make an example. There's a friend of mine, he was supposed to be here, and and there's many examples. So I won't mention his name. He might just get upset because this is something that was close to his heart. But he was the CFO of, I won't even mention the company. It's a multi-million-dollar organization. So he was handling a very strong balance sheet. So he then calls me and says, Stoff, you know what? We've been talking about this thing, man, but there's nothing tangible that's happening. So I want to then volunteer myself. You go and find a municipality within the Eastern Cape. I mean, this is from the Eastern Cape, where we've got people that are associated with the abahlaliworld.com, so that I've got political cover. I don't understand politics. I just want to make sure that I get there, I use my CA skills to be able to uplift that community. So he leaves. I mean, his daughter was probably about 6 months. He was probably married for about 2 years. I don't know how he survived the marriage, because if I was his wife, I would have told him, listen, don't come back. But hey, each to their own, but very, very passionate. Now, that municipality, to cut a long story short, that municipality moved, and this was, I think, Mount Ailey or something. That municipality moved from, what's the black mark, qualified or unqualified? What's the one, AG? Yeah. So qualified then, they moved from I think if my memory serves me correctly, it was the first time within the democratic dispensation they moved from qualified to unqualified. Let me tell you the importance of that. And this is certainly by no means through his own intervention. This is a collective of people that, starting with the MM at the time, was part of the movement, right? I remember, he called me to his shipping to come and present to people, drunkards, but hey, we do what we need to do. But now, let me tell you the importance of that. The importance of that is that when you've got an unqualified report, it means that Treasury, you've got a black mark, Treasury is not going to funnel funds into that particular municipality. Qualified, hey man, all of that, yeah. Okay? Now, so when you're qualified, it means that, and let's think about this thing, so funds are not coming into that municipality. So what that means is that service delivery then becomes impacted. Now, within 2 years, that municipality, for the first time within the democratic dispensation, through him helping, not to say that he was the one controlling, but through helping, for the first time, they were able to get a what? Unqualified report, ne? Right? Now, this is what I call leadership with a soul. People that are willing to put their hands up and say that we are vested within our communities. How can we put our... the guy was not compensated. For 2 years, he was not paid. Wasn't paid, right? Has a house in Senton, he has a Jaguar. I don't know how he did that, but he's the one that volunteered and said that we want to be a part of this. I'll make another example. There's an entity called NTG Solutions, right? And we've got the CEO there. If you read my LinkedIn post, I said one of the commitments that I'm going to make for this year is I'm going to make sure I adopt a school. And that school, we're going to make sure that it's not only number one in that municipality, but it grows to number one in the district. It is, Mr. Mtunge, Kausondele, man, because I want you, no, please come forth. You see, and I'm not picking on him, but I just want, so that, remember I said, we need to understand the jockey, right? Not the horse. The horse is the leadership with the soul, we'll get to that, but the jockey. So just maybe in terms of, the NTG Solutions intervention to the school, it's a new girl. Yes, what you guys have been doing over the years. For the first time, by the by, they've got an internet lab. They bought the internet lab. So all those computers, they bought them. But just to maybe give us a view, a profile of Isenyukele, but also the impact that through Abahlali and a member of Abahlali, long-standing member of Abahlali, how the difference has been made. Again, I want to make these things practical. They must be theoretical.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. There was a deliberate intervention that was taken by the founder of the company, NTG Solution. His name is Unati Tikwayo, who unfortunately, due to COVID, is no more. But this all started with the idea of plowing back and giving back. Senyukela is in a rural community, Eastern Cape, Mount Frey, Emapatsin. When the intervention started, which was around 2016, 2017, the pass rate there was around the 60% pass mark. When we intervened there in partnership with the principal, who really appreciated the intervention, who was also very dedicated in ensuring that there is change in how the students or learners behave and also in how they view what the future is. So they became a great partnership in this. One was us giving support in terms of material. Two was also just making sure that there's motivation that is given to the students. Importantly is that most learners do not have any role models except for those that they see on televisions that end up doing what the soapies show them and all of that. But when you start taking realistic people who have been and are from that area, showcase what is it that they have achieved as an example, running your own company that has got a huge impact within the society and nationally. As an example, the company is the one that was making sure that the digital census, the first digital census in South Africa is run, was then being done by NTG in partnership with StatsSA. So those are the stories that we tell the students and showcase to them. So that has brought about this motivation even to the learners to such an extent. Currently, we're hovering around the 90% pass mark. The highest pass mark was in 2018 at 98% of the matriculants passing. Not to keep it long, this is just the briefing.
No, thanks. So, I mean, again, I'm saying that, you know, these things are practical, and that's, you know, one of the schools that I'm certainly putting my hand up and saying that what are the resources that I will continue to plow within that school, because you can see, remember I said that we're aiming for #1 with district. So they moved to, you know, they moved to what, 90 what percent? It is 60 to 98. I mean, this is in a rural, it's very rural. And I have Ubabse Unozulu, and he is certainly committed on behalf of the Eastern Cape provincial government that they're going to support them, right? Because I think it's very important that, and we've got also chairman of MICT CETA, because I'm going to call you guys out one by one. It's very important that these things, you know, they happen. So just in terms of, I think it's important, right? You know, first of all, I mean, just introduce the organization, what you do. Me is the kind of support that, because now we're going to have, for an example, I mean, Usend, where's Usend? So she's there as the CEO of Petro SA. Now she's going to come and say, okay, but how can we collaborate within the Eastern Cape? You understand? So let's start with the partnership that you are now being put on the spot, that you are going to commit during the people, right? You're going to commit during the people. Part of it is that Microsoft has committed and done a lot of things with the province and your organization. How do you trickle that down? So we start there, and then we then look at the Eastern Cape point of view, because I think it's important that, and maybe let me just explain why, you know, I keep, you know, calling people up, is it's important for us to be able to say that where we've got ideas, who are the people that are able to assist? Because we're not looking for activity, what we're looking for is impact. So who are the people that are going to be able to assist? Whether this is Pumla, it's the UNDP. For an example, how is the UNDP in the movement within the leadership of the soul, right? Which we are going to define. But how is UNDP going to be able to assist with the resources? So you start thinking now, ne, while I put him on the spot. Roger, over and out. Support we're going to give to Senegal. And secondly, in terms of the exec and the opportunities to partner with government.
Inzima kodwa lo nifuna ndiyenze. Molweni bethuni. My name is Baphelele Mhlaba. I live and work in the Eastern Cape. I'm a public servant, I guess. And so when you are a public servant and you are told to make certain commitments, you start thinking about all the protocol and everything else. But this one I think I can freely speak to. So I think we spoke about 2 years ago, if not 3. Last year. Okay, last year. So look at that one is easy. I think from where I sit, I can immediately make that commitment that we will definitely be supporting the school. And I will take this up myself.
So what is the kind of support? This Sondela now. No, he must come back. So
Okay.
he must look you in the eye when you make the commitment.
No, he knows me.
Okay.
Yeah, he knows me. And he knows that I can't run away. And look, I know that from basically the engagements that we had, we were speaking about how disconnected the school is currently. And I think there's quite a bit that you guys were trying to do in terms of connectivity and other things. But a school that goes and achieves and moves from 60% to about 98% is surely a school that I can sit across the HOD of the Department of Education, look him in the eye, and commit him to a couple of things. So we can definitely take that school and take it to the Department of Education. In that process, in fact, we probably can do a lot more than that. We have currently an initiative that we are running where we are targeting at least 10 schools in the 12 districts of the Eastern Cape. And maybe an initiative like this could prompt us as a province into this mode where we can start basically collating some of these initiatives. I know that there's a couple of other initiatives where people that are passionate about education are actually adopting schools. So there's quite a lot of collaboration, I think, that can come through. Myself, I am in charge of infrastructure investment in the Eastern Cape. So from an infrastructure point of view, a couple of discussions I think we can have. We're currently running an initiative of revamping 17 agricultural schools in the Eastern Cape. So if we're talking about ensuring that our kids get to understand and embrace agriculture from a young age so that they don't look at it from an abstract point of view. So we're putting quite a lot of investment in the 17 agricultural schools and to make sure that they produce leaders of the future that know how to produce food. Because this is just one thing that the world will always need. As human beings, we'll always need food. And we need people that are going to be passionate about producing food going forward. So that's one thing that I think we can connect on and make sure that we run a collaboration on. 2 years ago, we had an initiative with Microsoft of starting to run digital literacy programs in high schools. And that, I think, stuff we can actually revisit because the school's pillar actually was successful. I know that the other pillars that needed quite a lot of other improvement, but the school's pillar did work. And those grade 10s are now going to be starting grade 12 this year. Those ones that we empowered 2 years ago as grade 10s are now going to start grade 12 this year. So I think that's something that we can revisit. Otherwise, we're open for engagement on these initiatives about giving back to our young. Is that Prasad? Haibo. Okay. Now this is one thing that you don't know, Stoff. Is it that man sitting there? In 2002. Yeah, 2002, 2003. We partnered around Tubaletu High School. And he was still living in the Eastern Cape. And the initiative that we ran with Prasad ended up with 100 million investment into that school. So we revamped Tubaletu High School in 2012, and we injected about 100 million in this infrastructure. It's a far better school than the last time you left it. And it is initiatives like that man over there sitting. And it takes conversations and discussions that we're having like tonight. Because it doesn't really take a lot. It's conversations that lead into genuine commitments that we make as individuals. And we get the powers of that be to take the right decisions. Because the truth is that sometimes people in all kind of positions just need to be nudged into the correct path. And it's always going to take activists like these ones that are passionate about leaders of the future and that are passionate about us reconnecting with what matters the most, which is who we are, where we come from, and the investments that we are prepared to make of our time and other things that we are prepared to give back to our communities. Thank you, Sof.
No thanks, no Zulu. So, I mean, I was just, and again, this is not, propping people up or that, but for me, I think the practical examples become quite important. So, Leadership with the Soul Institute. So, what is the Leadership with the Soul Institute? I don't know. I actually don't know. But for me, is the people around the room, the people around this table are the ones who are going to define what is the Leadership with the Soul Institute. And so I want us to go into a situation where, as we are speaking, because Unozulu mentioned that it starts with a conversation. Things start with a conversation, one, but the conversation has to be with the right people who have got their souls vested in the right places. That for me is number one. And so if we were to say the foundation of the Leadership with the Soul Institute is having conversations with the right people so that people are able to commit, then for me, I think, I don't know. So I want us to think, as we progress the conversation tonight, that how do we structure this institute? So it's done all these funny things, trademark funny things. So someone's going to try and steal it online, not here. Online, I see you. You're not going to win. And I think that perhaps the starting point is, someone mentioned, and I was just thinking about this thing, someone mentioned the importance of human connection. And I think for me, and the words were bring the human back to work and home. And I think for me, that's something important because it speaks to, how do you have your soul, man? If you don't have values, morals, ethics, how? I don't understand. Maybe Paula, let me just bring you up because you speak about the human touch. The fact that we've lost touch with, we've lost touch with the human touch. More importantly, take us through that journey that then goes to, I don't know what engaged humans is. You spoke about what? Engaged humans, right? But how does that, starting from that starting point, move all the way to engage humans? Because for me is the exercise that we did in introducing ourselves was trying to engage each other outside of our ego that says, I'm the CEO of X, Y, or Z. I want to be able to understand where's your soul rested. Many people struggle with the thing in terms of answering those three questions because all I understand is, and I'm the CEO at Momentum. That's all I understand. I don't understand who am I. So maybe just, 5+ minutes, even 10, just, taking us through that. I really want to understand what it means to be an engaged human, as you call it.
Thanks, Andile. So if you don't know who you are, how do you expect someone else to know who you are and to connect with you, right? So it always comes back to self. So being an engaged human is, first of all, raising your own level of self-awareness. If you don't know what your value system is and what your values are and what you stand for, you're unable to put boundaries down in terms of what you are for or what you are against, okay? If you don't have values in place, you end up putting yourself in compromising situations and positions. You can also become a people pleaser. So when you say yes to everything else and everyone else, you say no to self, and you put your own needs last and your own aspirations last. So becoming an engaged human starts with self first. You need to know yourself first. And only once you know yourself first at a human level, putting the ego aside and getting to sit in that uncomfortable space and looking at yourself in the mirror and going, do I like who I am? And if I don't like parts of myself, what am I willing to do about it? Am I willing to go through the process of change? And change is a process, as we all know, and change is uncomfortable, which is why people resist change, right? So that's where the connection comes in with self first before I can connect with another. At a human level, first and foremost, because that's what we are before we are anything else and everyone else. Before we bring in the labels, our titles, our material assets, the house we live in, the car that we drive, the places that we go to. First and foremost, we are human beings. And we need to connect at that level first before we add in all the labels that we use to identify ourselves and that we allow society to identify us with. before we can then engage in our personal space with our loved ones and with our families and our friends, which is where support structures and communities are built. And then in the workplace, which is another different kind of community. And collectively, how do we connect to make the impact that we want to make, that we desire to make? So getting to know self first is around self-leadership. And leading with soul is being able to connect with self. Do you like the person that you see in the mirror, the stranger looking back at you? And can you go to sleep at night with that clean conscience that you were talking about, Andile? So the foundations of relationships, relating with self before you can relate with others, whether you're in your personal space or in the professional space, the foundations, the core principles are the same. There has to be an element of trust. There has to be an element of respect. There has to be an element of honesty before communication can take place. Communication equals connection and the ability to resolve conflict. That's the foundation, core foundation of being human, engaged, having a soul, self-leadership, and being able to lead in your personal space and in your professional space.
No, that's, I mean, PQ, that's very, very important, right? Now, there's someone who, Tato, where are you? I mean, we've just met now. I only know him, he was an actor, but, you know, part of what he has been advocating is exactly this topic within the arts. Maybe to understand what is the problem statement and what is your entity trying to do, because what we're making sure that we build the leadership with the Soul Institute, with the right people, the right connections, right, and the right partnerships. Now, I don't know enough about your organization, what you guys are trying to do, but link it to, because I've understood your complaints and, you know, not complaints, challenges, but link it to now how your organization is trying to solve for X.
Good evening, everybody. Oh man, me, I'm a talker. Can we please all just stand up? I can tell you, everybody's been sitting for a long time. So if you could just embrace me by standing up just for 2 minutes. Just for 2 minutes, just for 2 minutes, just for 2 minutes. And I'm not trying to take over, I promise. I just wanted to make sure that we still engaged because it's quite an important, thank you. All right, just, you know, show of hands, just, you know, go up, butterfly. When I say butterfly, 2 hands, it's just that I'm holding a mic. Butterfly, when I say fish, that's what we do. Fish, 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 fish. And then we say butterfly again. Butterfly, fish, butterfly, butterfly, butterfly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why you do what I, you know, kind of like say, not what I do. Butterfly, 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 fish, 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 butterfly, 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 butterfly. Thank you very much, everybody. You can sit down. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much once again for the invite. I think it's just once and for all important to acknowledge everyone in the room. My name is Tato Molamu. I am a media personality, so I've worked in radio, television, both in front and behind the screen. 2013, we had a very huge policy fight with the SABC and our employer at the time, mainly because the policies don't enable the creative sector. We've got no unions, you can't take anyone to the CCMA, you can't pay your medical aid, so there's quite a lot of issues. So when you talk about the economy of South Africa, you know, I'm sure there's enough research that has told us that the creative sector itself will employ quite a lot of individuals in the future. Because creative sector, one of the key issues is that it's profiled quite wrong. You know, we look at the creative sector, us as a whole. We run an academy called the Leaders in Motion Academy. We identify young people from the township and rural areas. We partner with government and private sector. And we fund them in skills in gaming, animation, and film. Because film can possibly, and even including gaming, can cost you about 150 to about 200,000 a year to study. So, you know, if we're looking at future skills, we are looking to invite more partners so that we are able to combat this challenge called youth unemployment. I see our CEO also there from NEMISA. You know, we do the same thing that NEMISA kind of does. I think there needs to be more film schools, more gaming schools that drive access for a young black child who has hope to design a superhero from South Africa or Africa. So you can watch that animated content, because whatever it is that we consume, I think my good sir here spoke about people in soapies and, you know, people mimic it. And you're absolutely right. We want to ensure that we train young people that are able to tell good stories about South Africa, so that you also talk about the investment opportunities that this country can offer. I mean, is it Peppa Pig? There's Peppa Pig. You know, our kids are consuming that particular content, but we want to ensure that as we train these young people, that there's a future businessman in farming. They can create games in entrepreneurship in farming and, you know, in medicine and, you know, because virtual reality itself is also starting to play quite a key role in many sectors. So we just want to bridge the gap, drive access, ensure that young people are impacted, ensure that we create a diversified economy. But we do need a lot of support at a policy level. So if there are individuals or lobby groups, because we are also working with lobby groups to ensure that there's enough policies that support this particular sector, to ensure that when your kids call you tomorrow and say, Dad, I want to design games, which is R1 trillion, and like, it's a lot of money in that industry. So do more research around it so you can support more of your kids to come this side. We promise we'll. Is that ESCOM? Oh, sorry. And then hopefully we can design more solutions for ESCOM. Thank you very much.
You know, part of, you know, what I was inspired by was I'll call it a keynote address, but I think it's something that is quite important. Now, I spoke about, from a continental point of view, how Africa is defined as the dark, or is looked at as the dark, but with so many opportunities that exist. Michael, I mean, I've given you an indication of the kind of leaders that are here. It would be quite interesting for you, and remember, this is not anything that's committed or whatever, but just some reflections on what you've heard today, just some reflections in terms of how is the American Chamber of Commerce looking at engaging from a South African point of view, again, to make sure that we're able to uplift. So if you don't mind, I mean, just some crazy thoughts that you have. Again, this is non-committal because I understand that, listen, I come from an American company. So there will be no commitments, there's protocols, but we'd really love to hear your thoughts for like 5 minutes or so. And also, I mean, some of the things that, you know, you guys are doing elsewhere. So please do come through.
Okay, thank you, Andile. And I guess just to clarify one point, I actually don't work for the American Chamber of Commerce. I work for the U.S. Department of Commerce at the consulate here in Johannesburg. So essentially a part of the U.S. government. And, you know, they probably really don't like me speaking on behalf of the U.S. government, but I hope in this context it's okay. I guess all I can say is describe 3 things that I've seen tonight. And number one, this has blown me away because I have the feeling that, you know, I'm greatly in the minority here. I haven't seen any other Americans. And so in many ways, I feel privileged to be in this kind of crowd with so many leaders. So I appreciate that. Hats off to you. I mean, don't applaud me. You guys are all doing it. But I guess what I've seen tonight have been 3 things. Number one, communication. And in many ways, being a leader means being able to listen as much as you talk. And so this was far from any one-sided monologue and so on. It's been very much a dialogue. And I think that's vitally important. And so that's hands off to Andile and the organization and so on, because what he did at the very beginning is risky, and I think it very much paid off. So that's just great. Love that. Number one. Number two, the focus on leadership. I guess, you know, the United States has had some good leaders historically. South Africa has too. But today, in many ways, I think there is very much a dearth of leadership. And, you know, I work for the U.S. government. I don't think we have the leadership that we need. And so I think the focus on leadership is vitally important, and cultivating that and looking for all the resources to develop that is vitally important as well. And so I think bringing all this together is another great step in contributing to that process. And then I guess the third thing is the emphasis on education, because in many ways the future comes about because of education. And so with the school that you were highlighting earlier, just other ways of education about yourself, so on and so on. Education creates our future, it creates South Africa's future, and we need to value it, support it, and do whatever we can to further it, because without education, we can go nowhere. And so I think, this is another contributor to that process. And so what I am going to do is go back to my colleagues within the consulate here in Joburg and see what other resources we can contribute, because you're doing some great things here. We want to support that, and I'll do all I can do to support it. So thank you.
So you'll see where I'm going with this, if you haven't seen. So the people here are going to be held accountable for certain things. We're going to go there. And also, so we've spoken from the chair. I'm so used to dealing with the AmCham, right? So please do excuse me. But I think also, Deputy Ambassador, your reflections around the conversation, because we've had numerous conversations whereby you've asked me the question that, where are the leaders, sorry, Paula, where are the leaders in South Africa, right, that are going to be able to assist in solving the country's problems, whether it's your ESCOM and those kind of things. So for me, I think that reflection becomes quite important. Now, when we've also spoken about the kind of leaders that we need within the African continent so that we're able to take the continent forward. Those reflections, and also, you can see that we are here. Again, this is, here you're a leader with a soul. You are not a deputy ambassador. Here you are a leader with a soul, because we want to tap into that soul. We spoke about soul engagements. Here we want to talk to you, the core view. I know the core view because we've had numerous engagements, but people here don't know the core view. So we'd really appreciate just some of your thoughts, reflections, some of the things that were mentioned here. But also, I think what's going to be key is because we've also spoken about the opportunity for South Africa to be able to partner with the Republic of Senegal, to be able to invest in the Republic of Senegal. Those are, kind of like the things that I want you just to touch on. So, Deputy Ambassador, please, if you don't mind. And I know I'm putting on the spot, but this is what happens with the Leadership with a Soul Institute. We put people on the spot.
Good evening. Thank you, Andile. I would like to express to you our deep congratulations and for giving us this opportunity, this huge opportunity to exchange together in this on this important item. We are so excited for what we heard here coming from everyone, and we would like to thank you very much and to tell you that first of all about our work here in South Africa. As diplomat, the embassy, we representing our country in South Africa in order to improve the cooperation between South Africa and Senegal. And this cooperation is on many areas: political, economical, military, cultural, in many areas. Investment, how to improve this cooperation between South Africa and Senegal. What Senegal can take from South Africa and what also South Africa can have from Senegal. Coming on the item, Andile, I'm not speaking as diplomat. I'm speaking as African. Because for me, according to me, only Africans can solve the problem of Africa. And before I came here, I was appointed at our embassy at the United Nations in America, your beautiful country. I stayed there 7 years at UN. And I am very impressed by Americans. Because the American way of life, Americans, they are happy, they believe on Americans. You know, one leader in America, before taking a decision, he will remain one question: the national interest. If this decision is on the line of the national interest, he will take it. But what problem we have in Africa, Andile? Africa, we have everything. We have many resources. We have everything. We have gold. We have water. We have mine. What we don't have is leader. We have everything in Africa. Go in Congo, go in Guinea, go in Mali, in Senegal. In here, it's South Africa. We have everything. But we are not developing. Why? Because we don't have good leader. The problem of Africa is not money, it's not mine, it's not gold, it's person, human person. The problem is in us. And we need, it's not a good education, no. All our leaders, they have all diploma, no. They have diploma, they have a good education, but what they don't have is the values. It's important. We need values. We need to believe on Africa, to respect Africa, to be honest, and to fight against corruption, against bad things. That's we need. We need leaders to solve African problem, because only Africans can solve the problem on Africa. And your president used to say in Senegal, President Obama, he come in Senegal, he say, we don't need institution, but we need person, good leaders to develop this country. Thank you, Andre. I would like my friend to say 2 words to complete me. Complete me.
Good evening again. Well, I will be very brief now when it comes to our mission. And, you know, Andile, when we talk about leaders with soul, I will be giving a simple example before coming to the task as a mission. As His Excellency has mentioned, we are indeed here to represent Senegal, the interests of the country as well as the citizens, but in partnership with the SADC region, because our embassy actually is representing 11 countries within the SADC region. Now, during COVID, I will give you a simple example whereby we were all worried. We wouldn't even know where to go. Some Senegalese were stuck here. Other Senegalese were in Senegal and they wanted to come back because they are married to South Africans, they do have kids, and they are really worried. Now the question of how do we get actually families connected was raised. God knows, they brought it to my attention and I told them, well, that's not my mission because by that time, I wasn't working for the mission. It's afterwards that I got appointed by the head of state. I told them that they need to address it, which was raised, but then they didn't have such a program. They came back to me and told me, Paul, we really need a solution. I told them, you know what? To lift up an aircraft is not like using a taxi to go to anywhere. Let us start with a group from 3 up to 250. I went to South African Airways because I am a regular traveler. Indeed, I do have experience. I've been to the US 32 times. I've been to China at least 150 times, without talking about Paris and other countries. So we've gathered, I'm a lifetime platinum with South African Airways. God knows I engaged with leadership and I told them, guys, we need your assistant. They gave me a quotation, but they decided to sell me a full aircraft. We didn't have the means. Maybe I could reach 100 plus. We negotiated. I told them that our bottom price, the top we can afford was 12,500 then. Unfortunately, we didn't find common grounds. Then I took a plane B being with Kenya Airways. Kenya Airways, they decided to give me an aircraft, the latest actually Dreamliner. And the routing was from Nairobi to Johannesburg, direct to Dakar, and then back to Joburg before landing back to Nairobi. They charged me $250,000. And I swear to God, I didn't have the money. That was called repatriation flight. But what I did is, you know what, guys, what I could afford is actually let the clients to pay directly into your account. But in cutting the matter short, God knows, during that time, government have changed the policy. Flights will not be departing whereby passengers will just report directly to airports. No. You have to go to your embassy. You have to ask the Department of International Relations and Cooperation for authorization. And then people will be called one by one to board in the bus, escorted by the traffic department as well as the SAPS on our way to our Tambo. But I was so happy, God knows, based on only one thing, that willingness of finding a solution. When we took off, we landed in Nairobi, we were taken to the hotel. There is a representative of the United Nations who told me, Paul, you don't measure what you have done in terms of blessing. Imagine all these families which will be connected. When we took off, they even told the captain on board, who said, you know what, this guy deserves to be cheered. We're not saying it, as Andile has mentioned, to be bossy, but we have to be there for solution. Now, when I met the representative of South African government at the embassy, there was the lieutenant colonel, which calls Masinga, as well as the economical representative, Mr. Karabo. We had a dinner, a lunch, sorry, my bad. They said, all what we need is to make sure that the South African companies, they have a breakthrough in Senegal in terms of its geographical position, but in terms of a country which is at the pole position, whereby in terms of the financial institutions report, as I told you, Michael, this year we're looking at 10% growth, which is the top country when it comes to Senegal, in terms of the International Monetary Funds as well as the World Bank. So my mission as the economic representative, I saw people from the digital world and so forth. We would like to see schools being up to date when it comes to actually registration and all of that. We'd love to see these opportunities. South Africa, regardless of the challenges, it's a country which I will salute. They've made a lot of progress from apartheid to date. And I'm very much grateful of, regardless of the challenges, people are always settling, believing that tomorrow will be a better day. Therefore, Andile, today, we are actually raising our hands and open it to invite all those who feel that when I will be inviting for a forum, which I'm intending to do yearly at least twice, between Senegal and South Africa, to actually extend an invitation via you so that these actually leaders with soul can always get themselves together. These are actually our take, and we would love to see countries within Africa to cooperate. We would like to see the opportunities here being taken there and that side back here. Now, when they come, they talk about the ZLECAF, which is the free trade, which they are busy negotiating. We end up understanding that we need to keep it simple. They usually say the best spoken language is the simple tense, regardless whether we're talking in English, in French, or whatever. As long as we make it simple, with the will of elevating poverty, representing our communities, based on genuine leadership and commitment, eradicated or set aside corruption, not that poor mind that we cannot make it happen. Look at Elon Musk. He's a South African born here in Pretoria. To me, he went to America based on the opportunities. It's a huge country. We talk about more than 50 states. Today, when we talk about the wealthiest person, either we like it or not, he was born and bred in South Africa, here in Pretoria. Therefore, I am inviting, on behalf of the Senegalese embassy and government, whoever feels that is willing to actually be part and parcel of the dream of leaders with a soul to contribute towards actually the development of the continent, you are more than welcome. We will be in our offices waiting for you guys. Thank you very much.
Andile, I wanted to only add that for me, Andile is a good leader for South Africa. I would like you to, you know why we are friends. We was at Nemisa with the director is here. It's through him. And he made a presentation, and a very good presentation. And I was very impressed. And after the meeting, I contacted him. I tell Africa need people like you. You have a good education. And when I met her mom, I congratulate her mom. I say to her mom that Americans said good children came from good parents. I congratulate you as a mom. I say, Andile have a good education. And also, he know his job. He impressed me. And I asked him to do politics in order one day, perhaps, to be on the leader of South Africa. But he say he don't want to do. It's another discussion. But I really appreciate and be impressed by his presentation on Nemisa. That's what we have. And we met many times. He come visit me, and that's why we are here today. I hope that South Africa, if you see ESCOM problems, we are not here for that. The South Africa airline, you know, us Senegal, South Africa airline from Joburg, Dakar, Washington, you know that. Now South Africa airline bankrupt, ESCOM bankrupt, problem of leadership. We're coming back on this problem. But Andile, I thank you very much, and I hope you will you have a good profile to be one day on. No, I don't say president, but part of the team leading this country and this Africa. We need a leader like your profile. And I am honest saying that. I am a diplomat, but from public, and he's from private. But honestly, I was very impressed by your presentation. And thank you again for giving us this opportunity. As Musafal said, we are open at the embassy for partnership between Senegal and South Africa. And all these entities here, you are welcome at our embassy. We can follow up and to see how to connect these entities with Senegalese entities. But we are not here for that. We are here for Africa. We need to change the dark color on a white color. And we can do it because we have everything in Africa. Africa is rich, the rich country and the poor country. Why? Because of the leadership. If you have leadership, we will be on the top. Thank you.
So let me first apologize. You know, I get so passionate about these issues that I know Upi is my boss here. She was like, no, Andile, you must take a break. She's WhatsApping me here. Let me apologize that, you know, we are where we are time-wise and otherwise, but I'm very passionate about these issues. For me, I can tell you now is I can stay for 6 hours discussing these issues and trying to find resolutions. So, you know, if there's people that feel that, you know, they need to go, there's no issues. I think the core message is quite clear. So please, no one will think otherwise of you. But for me, this is something that leaders with a soul that I hear when I've had individual engagements with yourselves, you've been very clear around what it is that you believe we need to do. Now, remember I said that the leadership with the Soul Institute is going to be defined here. I've created the structure and the shell, but in terms of what it is that we need to do is going to be defined here. So the first one, what I had Deputy Ambassador, is that a bilateral with the leadership with a soul shell is the next step. Now I'm saying if we're able to do those kind of partnerships with a shell, imagine now when people here start saying, this is how we see this institute is going to be, the partnerships that we will start having. I'm not sure if you guys are hearing what I'm saying. I'm not sure if it makes sense. To me, it makes sense. To other people, perhaps it doesn't make sense. So I'm now going to open up, maybe just, you know, that's why I've got them here, maybe just, you know, 2 or 3 questions. But where we're heading to now is probably about, we're going to take reflections of how do we then capacitate this shell? How do we see this in operation, this institute in operation, so that when we come here, because I hate talk shops. Most people that know me, they know I agitate for action. I get very irritated if we talk too much. So there will be, we're definitely going to head towards that. But maybe if there's like, you know, questions for the people that have spoken here, let's certainly. And also guys, the online guys, can you just make sure that you bring their questions to me? So are there any questions? And please don't embarrass my panelists by not having questions. Like, it'll be a bad reflection on me.
Yeah, no. It's wrong. I think I was making noise. That's why he decided to call me. But I do have something that I would just like to probably deposit on all those that have spoken, and hopefully it's a question that they do answer. Starting with yourself, because my understanding of what a soul is, it's the essence of who you are as a human being. So if you are going to say a leadership with a soul, it's not one thing, because us here being collectively sitting here, we are different, and we come with different traits that would contribute in the whole in terms of what we want to do. Example, there was a lot of speaking where you spoke about the problem being a leadership in Africa. In South Africa, it's exactly the same problem. We've got lots of things, as you would know, but we are where we are because we have a leadership problem. So if you were to take that, making an example, when you're talking about the leadership with the soul, the lack of leadership, what is these traits that we need that the current leaderships do not have? So when you talk about the issue of leadership, because it's not enough to say we have a leadership problem, because we have leaders, but there's something wrong with the leaders that we have. So if we translate it to say, what is the soul when it comes to leadership? What is the type of traits that we need? So that if we go out, Andile was saying that he wants us to come up with things. So what I would see there is us saying, when we're talking about leadership and the soul, what is it that we need to do about leadership? Similarly, if we're talking to connections, what is that trait that we need in human beings to make that possible? So that's one thing that I would just like to deposit on all the speakers, is to define in the part that that you all spoke about, in that what are these traits that we need, so that we can get to a point where we can say we can start talking but to put these things in compartments. I'll give an example, if I can say how I view my contribution in the discussion of soul. And I'll start with maybe making an example with leadership. In South Africa, we need bold leadership. We're sitting here in this room, you've got people who are leaders, people, when you put them to go and speak, they will say the right things. But the question that I would like to ask is, where you are, whether you are in a government entity, whether you are in a company, what is it that you are doing? Because it's not like we lack the brains. We have the people. But I've seen more often that you would sit with people in government departments, even with the power that is given into them, they do not do what they think they should be doing. They simply follow what is happening. So that's really what I would like to deposit, is that what is this real tangible thing that is a soul that we need to bring out to make the change that we need to make?
No, we'll take three of them. So the question is then, what are the traits of leadership with the soul? And I think again we are defining, how we're going to populate the structure. So guys, with the microphone, there's two questions there. So while we are getting that side.
Good evening, it's Elijah Masego. I just wanted to maybe, as we ponder this thing, consider the fact that maybe demystify this thing of leadership. Leadership is not political leadership. I think that's the first thing that must be clear about. Leadership is not political leadership. Once we start with that problem and remove it, then we can discuss leadership. Now, I grew up in an era where there was no government of black people. I grew up under apartheid. And there was life, notwithstanding the difficulties. But there were people who could be leaders, not political leaders, business leaders, community leaders. There was life. There are people now, the post-94 thing I think has confused black people. We think leadership and tenders and all the stuff is what is leadership all about. It is not. We need to have community leaders. You've got people who have got, who can make, even in government, by the way. In government, I was talking to the CEO of NEMISA earlier on, sorry to point you. And he says, I'm from NEMISA. He says, do you know NEMISA? I say, no, I actually do. I pointed to one of my friends here, the three of us sitting here. We started NEMISA, by the way, far back in 1999, when we were in government, because we realized that there's a problem of skills shortage for the future. And we said skills for the future are in short. We didn't listen to political leadership of Mandela and somebody else. We took a decision in our environment where we are. We said we've got a problem of SAPC that has got the producers that are only white. All producers in South Africa at that point in SAPC, there was no ETV, were all white. So, but I can't live with that. That's why we came with the concept of what we call School of Broadcasting, which is NEMISA today. So I'm saying it's that soul that is important. When we cannot infuse some skills in black people, black children, there's no hope. when you can't actually bring up simple things like sports field, let them play football after school, right? That's how I grew up. That's how you produced Chomosono, Ace Nsoeleng, and all these guys. Because there were people in the community who were called sports leaders who could make decisions about people playing football after school and every Saturday and Sunday morning before the big games could happen. But then kids had no chance. There were drugs at the time when you grew up. There was dacha. But some people had no chance to do that because there were a lot of things that they could be engaged in. Simple things, street sports and all that and kind of things. So that soul is gone. We've got a society that has lost soul. And we cannot appeal to political leadership and say, it's your problem. It is equally our problem. So that's what I'm saying. If we start looking at political leaders, they've got political interest, not community or other interest. We are going to be paralyzed as we are today in this country. Thank you.
There were some hands I'm going to reflect, there were some hands raised. Babu said, if you don't mind just, coming to the forefront, because there's reflections that you have, as I mentioned when I introduced you. I think that it becomes very, very important for you to come to the front.
Let me take this time to say I'm humbled to be part of this gathering. At the age 16, I was arrested and put into Robben Island for 7 years. And why was that happening? It is because I said no to Bantu education and apartheid. That should not define my credentials, but I want us to talk about what is happening now. I want to say, I'm listening to this conversation, and I'm saying to myself, is this what, at the age 16, and I stayed in solitary confinement for 18 months, is this what I fought for? And I'm not asking any one of you here to say pay back. I'm not. All I'm saying is that what is it that as this new democracy are we wanting to achieve? Is this what we fought for? All I'm asking is that let us now, as this nation, I say to people, I was a stone thrower in 1976. I went to Robben Island, I became a stone breaker. This is my class, so I can talk to them. And coming out of Robben Island, I then became a stone gatherer for the reconstruction and development of a new South Africa. Now, Andile, where are you? Thank you for inviting me to be part of. I'm looking at all of us sitting here as stone gatherers. We are building a new South Africa. We are building a new Africa. And let me assure you, building and reconstructing and developing is not a goal, it's not an easy thing. You guys as young people have to find the stones we're throwing, the stones we're breaking, and put them together so that we can have a new South Africa. And I'm asking Andile, is this one of the programs that is talking to stone gathering? Is this one of the programs that is talking to reconciliation and development? Is this one program that is trying to find those stones that we threw and putting them together so that we can build a new South Africa? Okay, ESCOM is giving us problems. Hello? Did you hear me? And what are those stones that we are gathering to build ESCOM? Senegal, I heard Senegal here. And thank you for taking leadership in a way of building this Africa. I always say Africa is shaped like a question mark. And have you noticed? Shaped like a question mark. And maybe Senegal might feel uncomfortable. The answers of Africa are in the dot of the question mark, and that's South Africa. But having said that, colleagues, I'm appealing to all of us sitting here. Please, please, it's time that let's start stone gathering. And stone gathering, if you're white, you might be talking about someone called de Klerk, who actually threw stones against black people. And I'm saying, I was taking young people the other day to Constitutional Hill. And I took them to a cell where I spent 18 months at the age 16, where I was alone in a cell. And I said to these young people, I spent 18 months. Can you spend 18 minutes? And they couldn't. All I'm asking, Andile, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to give a political speech. All I'm asking, as an old man, I'm an old man, maybe even older than all of you here sitting. I'm not too sure how old you are. I'm not IT, I'm not anything. Oh, Andile, when he invited me, as I stand as I stand here, I'm on a bail of 10,000 rands fighting ESCOM 5 years ago. And can I say this, that I'm appealing to all of us here. Please stop talk shows. Let us as African people start having a program of action, of gathering stones to build a new South Africa and a new Africa. And that Africa and a new South Africa should not by pigmentation, but should be by performance. I must judge you not by your pigmentation, but by your performance. I must judge you not by your pigmentation, but performance. And Andile, thanks for allowing that space.
So I know there were questions, 2 or 3 questions from there. Michael, I see you. Where are you going? Sit your ass down. Sorry, I used bad language. Upset. If you don't mind, just pass it on.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to be a bit short. I just wanted to ask all the leaders that are in here, including the ones in front. Firstly, it's a privilege to be in this room. But looking around, one could tell that there aren't a lot of youth around here. And as you said, Andile, that it starts with a conversation, which I'm sure a whole lot of leaders here know somebody, the right person, for every conversation that needs to be held, right? And the core of most of the messages that was spoken about here is the youth, education, and education goes to youth, but I don't see the youth here that are supposed to be involved in these conversations. As people that are here, people in corporate, people in government, people in NGOs and NPOs who know somebody who has the right solutions to equip or connect to that to the youth that are here. So my question is, as leaders that are here, as leaders that are in front, as leaders in corporate and in government and in governance in all sectors of the world, how do you pass down the baton of leadership? In government, we have leadership that are above 60. We complain about it. We complain that there is leadership, but there isn't the right leadership that we need to solve problems that are here. But I don't see youth that you would equip to be leaders of tomorrow, to take the baton for the solutions to problems that you're talking about and carry them on with you. So what are you doing as leaders, solving these problems, but bringing along the next generation that are supposed to sustain the solutions that we're coming up with here? Thank you.
So those the only ones. Okay, so let me reflect on the questions. I don't have the answer, ne? None. So the first one is traits of leadership with the soul. Paul, I'm going to hand that one to you. There was then a comment on this side around, again, I think it's a follow-up, but the right kind of leadership. There were examples that were made around community leaders, non-political, and those kind of things. I mean, part of what I understood also was there was also a skilling component, which was the skilling component I'm going to give to you. Michael, what I'm going to give to you is, and again, this is from, the experience that you have is, so we've got skilling there, but when we speak about non-political, non-partisan, I'll call it civic society involvement in being able to solve challenges. What are your thoughts around that? So I'll give that one to you. So 3, Deputy Ambassador, you're going to get a very difficult one. So there's the stone gathering, which Ubabu Seth spoke about around reconstruction, redevelopment. And I mean, he spoke about, redefining South Africa, but I'm saying redefining the continent. You spoke about leadership. What are also those other things that need to be done to be able to turn the continent into something that is positive? So Paula what we'll do, we'll start with that. There's also the youth issue, and I'm going to speak about the youth issue. So Paula, we'll start with you. I think everyone's got the question, right? So we'll do that and then we'll end here.
Thanks, Andile. So I think Loiso, is he gone? So he asked around what is soul leadership. So soul leadership and traits of a leader for me is about authenticity. And authenticity for me comprises a number of elements, right? It's about inclusivity. And inclusivity is not just about race or gender. Inclusivity for me is around the diversity in the room and creating inclusivity of diversity. So that means, how do we create a safe space to hear all the voices in the room? Because everybody has something to contribute, whether it's skills, whether it's expertise, whether it's a network, whatever it might be. It's also about, when it comes to diversity, this acronym that we throw around, DEI, diversity, equality, inclusivity, it's not about that so much anymore. It's about acceptance and belonging. How do we accept each other for who we are, the human beings that we are, and how do we create a safe space where people feel like they belong, okay? And leadership And authentic leadership is around that sometimes you lead from the front and sometimes you lead from the back, okay? And it's about empowering people. It's about the difference between a leader and a manager. A manager lights a fire underneath people. A leader lights the fire within people, inspires them. And how do you empower people to take initiative, be creative, innovative, and come up with creative solutions to solve the problems collectively, which is where the diversity comes in, where the inclusivity comes in, and acceptance and belonging, that we've all got something to contribute. And then lastly, for me, it's about vulnerability, in that a leader doesn't necessarily have to have all the answers. A leader can put their hand up and say, I don't know, and be okay with that. But you know what? How about we work on this together and we find a way forward together? So that for me is what leadership with a soul comprises.
Thank you again. I think, for me, maybe one of the things I'd like to touch on is the issue of healing, and I think you just spoke to it. I think a lot of times if psychologically you were pushed towards psychological exclusion, you sometimes don't believe that you actually belong in a particular economy. So I think a lot of us could possibly be still trapped psychologically in some of the past that was never healed. So I think maybe the first start is to start the conversation about healing. I mean, we talk a lot about mental health because, we've trained, I think, now in the 5 years, and we started on the 4th of July, believe it or not, in 2018. But majority of the young people, if you ask them to build a story, write a story, it always came from a place of pain. We say, tell a good story about South Africa. There will be guns, there will be rape, in all of those stories. And we then ask the question, why is it that you cannot tell a good story? And they said, this is all that I know, because the environment I live in only reflects bad things. So I think as you were speaking, Tate Masego, the School of Broadcasting, for us, hence Leaders in Motion Academy, to you, Dr. Say, we are building leaders that are in action. We want you to be conscious content creators, that what you eat with your mind is very dangerous and could be very toxic. So we need to recondition the mindset of content creators, because storytelling has always been such a key and important thing in every community, especially in Africa. Now, the African story, because it's never told in a positive light, Africa cannot see itself in the beauty that it deserves to. So, having worked on a show called Generations, it highlighted the possibilities of South Africa, because black people were heads of advertising agencies. But something has shifted in broadcasting. You only start to now only see crime and all of these things. And what that does to a human mind, I think maybe these are issues we need to confront, is that we need to get to a point where we control the type of content that our future leaders are consuming, because it is the food that will then bear the seeds and the fruits that South Africa doesn't want to see itself with. So our hope is, again, that we applaud you to not see the creative sector as it's a very necessary sector, because you use it every day. Big business, small business, you drive content to tell people about the services you render. We are teaching young people to be able to help your businesses, small business, because of our young people that we train. We ask them to adopt a business in the township, because that's where they are from, or the rural area, and create a video that speaks about their services. So I think maybe, as our lady was asking, where is the youth? I think the youth is in all of us, right? Because now once we start to touch on the issue of leadership with a soul, we are reigniting that young person. That's why we work a lot with young people, because we want to see young people being elevated to the right positions. And that's why we will then have a lot of leaders come to this academy. We worked with the head of YouTube, I think the YouTube ambassador from Ghana. We've worked with Juliet Ibrahim from Ghana. We've worked with Senegalese. We've worked with Nigerians. We've invited them to our academy to talk about the opportunities that Africa has. And how do we tell the story? That's what we are teaching young people. And we'll be in Free State, we'll be in Pretoria, we'll be in the Northwest, taking 50 kids per program, and it's an all-funded program. You know, and we want to really just thank those partners that continuously support us to ensure that good stories are told on a daily basis, because I think psychologically we'll start to see the shift that we want to see. Thank you.
Okay, I was asked to speak a bit on civil society and partisanship and so on. And just let me be right up front, I've worked for the US government for almost the last 10 years, but still in many ways I'm a private industry guy. I've worked 25, 30 years in private industry, and so in some ways I still don't fit in that well in government, and so I'm kind of an outsider looking in. And so when I think about civil society, to me that's thinking about NGOs, non-government organizations, non-profit associations. You know, in some ways membership organizations like the AmCham here in South Africa, the American Chamber of Commerce. And all of these organizations are brought together for a purpose. Sometimes they're political, sometimes they're not. Hopefully they're nonpartisan. But what I think's most important there is simply having the environment in which these organizations can exist, express their views freely, openly, and not be criticized for it or not be persecuted for it. And so in many ways, I think South Africa is in a very good place, because I can't claim to know the civil society here in South Africa very well, because we work much more with businesses as opposed to NGOs. But my impression is the biggest strengths here in South Africa are the strengths of their institutions, the legal system, you know, the protections of the freedoms, all those kinds of things. And so in many ways, these organizations in civil society get to what someone else was saying about the values behind them, the decision-making behind them, which are vitally important. And so, you know, again, in taking a look at the values and decisions that drive these organizations are the most important thing. And as long as they're able to pursue them freely and openly, you know, and not be persecuted for them, that's the most important thing. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Based on this question, Axel Kabu is a Gabonese author, Gabonese. She write a book. And the book in French is Si l'Afrique refusait le développement. She asked, I don't know how. It's like Africa refused to develop. Axel Kabu, she write a book. If you see, and she developed many ideas there. She asking why Africa didn't develop, and she mentioned many questions. For me, it's not because Africa didn't want to develop. For me, historically, Africa faced many problems. You see, like South Africa, you come from a long way, many problems. It's in any country in Africa for me. If you look at also the global economic governance, many injustices against Africa. For me, we need also to reform the global economic governance. And we have another author also, René Dunant. He write in French, he said, l'Afrique étranglée. How to get it? He mentioned that Africa is strangled. By who? It's many things to develop. But only to say we have the slavery, we have the colonization, and we have also, if you go to the global, the World Bank, the FME, yes, the International Monetary Funds. If you go to l'OMC, the global, the trade, the global trade organization, the structure is, they are not in favor of Africa. For me, Africa is on a good way. We have emerging leader, like our President Macky Sall, who leading right now African Union. We have some leaders, good leaders in Africa. But globally, what I wanted to say is Africa faces now many problems. We have security problems. We have to solve the conflict in the country and between countries. We have to solve it. We have many conflicts. We need to have peace in Africa. No development without peace. Peace is important in order to develop our country. But I hope that we have a new generation thinking that Africa must be changed and Africa will change. And for me, we encourage this generation to fight and to continue in order to develop this beautiful country. And I hope that this development will happen one day. Thank you.
No, thanks, team. Again, let me apologize. For me, I'll keep on apologizing because these are things that feed my soul. When we speak about the development of people, the development of the continent in its entirety, these are things that feed my soul. So I think there was one question or comment that wanted to come through. I think what we're going to do is I was going to get to a situation whereby we deliberate the structure or the shell that exists. How do we populate it so that it becomes an institute? But I think, you know what, it's 10 o'clock. Like I said, I don't want to be selfish. I can go until 12 o'clock. So what we'll do, we'll defer those conversations on an individual basis. I mean, let's think about it quickly and logically, right? So from the Senegal, remember this is a shell, and this is what I'm saying, the power of the belief of individuals that are here. So a shell has got a partnership that they're going to sign with the Republic of Senegal. Which shell has been able to do that? Right? It's because of the belief that they have in the leadership and the leaders that are here. We've got Tato here, speaking about the reshaping of the story. They've also got we're going to be signing a partnership with them. We've got Simi. Where's Simi? From the health and wellness point of view, I mean, that's why she's giving. So for me, the key question is, how do we define the leadership with the Soul Institute, but everyone contributing? There must be no one tenders or funny things like those. Only for people that are leaders and leaders with the soul who are willing to say that here's what we are contributing. What we need is for us to be able to scale. We need partnerships, and that partnership is going to be the leadership with the soul because it galvanizes the right kind of people. Very clear around that. What the structure entails, I don't know. It's for everyone here to define that. And perhaps, I don't know what the suggestion will be. Perhaps we need to have a smaller, a smaller version of this. I don't know. That will come through, but let me take the question.
I even forgot my question. I will take just 10 seconds. We are going back to Pretoria also. So the question was even for you, but I was just listening around. like the senior said, leadership has to do with politics also. Because I hope you are not putting it on ABC, I don't know. Just let me make it clear. I'm not talking about one president, but even you speak about the leadership. So it means like those guys higher talking. So my question was, how effective would be this ALS, I can say, Alex Leadership Studies also, like Institute of Security Studies. I was talking with Mr. Yaki Sellier, this big guy, and I just asked him one question, but when he answered me in box, I understood a lot of things. You know, now we have Ukraine war, terrorism, and COVID, and all those things showed us that we will surely go down, maybe in 10 years, in 20 years. And this lady over there, excuse me, pointing also, this young lady, in few years she will be another lady, with kids also, with other duties. But we must train them to adapt, because their world in 10 years will be a quite different world. In 20 years will be another different world. We will not define it today. So my question really is, how effective can we be if we are not linked to this leadership? Because ultimately they will be the one deciding. Don't be a think tank, like a security study institute, which will propose things to people who will never apply them. Here we are from some very like, so many different backgrounds, and those backgrounds maybe make it like a kind of pressure group, if I can call it like that, which can make people higher think about changing things. Otherwise, we will just make like the very senior said, talk shows, talk, and nothing will happen. Because we can decide for Senegal, you will never decide for South Africa, and you will never decide for America. How can we be linked with higher to force them to decide? That's my question.
No, I think, my good sir, you've got a very... Oh, okay. So where's the microphone? Can the microphone go there while we're doing that? So the one thing we're very clear about, and this is why I brought practical things that are happening. Can we get the microphone? So this is the thing. I spoke about the fact that I agitate for change. I've got no time for talking. And so, where's the microphone? Oh, okay, there's one here, and then we'll push it over that side.
Good evening. I hope you can see me. Firstly, Stoff, thank you very much for extending the invitation. I think you have taken it to another level. I've attended engagements before that you have called us, and in all engagements, I can assure you, it has not been talk shop. When we left there, it was a network, and we made sure that we are able to take care of each other. Take care of each other not in the back pocket, but taking care of each other in unlocking potentials and opportunities. Henceforth, I told Trevor earlier that when he starts with introductions. And he did not disappoint, and that's exactly where we went to. But what I want to talk to is that earlier when he gave us 3 problem statements, all of us, if not, we spoke about the future we want to see. And because we understood that we are an aging community, or an aging, we then spoke about the investment in youth. Everybody in this house, you and I, escaped what is currently happening with the youth. Tadro, I want to implore you. Look at what's currently happening with the Nyaupe. Nyaupe has taken care of the youth. That's why I started with saying you and I escaped that. There was a system that worked, that ensured that you and I never got exposed to those things. That system worked. Henceforth, we find ourselves in positions that we are in. What happened since then? For us to find our youth engulfed in those things like the way they are. I mean, there's one title who is now very popular, I think, on YouTube and everywhere. His name is Bonga. Is it Bonga? Yeah, Bonga. B-A-O-N-G. If you listen to that young man speak, and you then get to hear that they picked him up in the street because he was also already hooked in Nyaupe. How many of those can we save from the street? To ensure, yes, government speak, Stoff's friend, our premier, the new premier, speaks about the fact that he wants to take the youth and put them into rehabilitation. That's a very good gesture. But we also need to talk about then how do we then assist him? Because when government pronounces, they pronounce on our behalf as individuals. I've got conviction. I normally say when the president gets into parliament and speaks about the fact that a number of graduates are not working and we are going to create opportunities of this many for graduates. He's not necessarily speaking about government. He's speaking about you and I in the positions that we hold. What legacy are we leaving behind? Because that legacy that we are leaving behind is the future of this country, is the future of this continent, and is the future of the world. That should be what pains us on the fact that how do we multiply ourselves within the youth? When a fellow was speaking there about the fact that they are not seeing the youth here. Maybe, Stoff, in the past, what you used to say, you said, when you send an invitation, you then said, bring a friend into. Maybe this time, the next leadership summit, which I heard you saying, you will be prepared to partake and even fund to make sure that at least these interactions are actually working. That's when we should be saying, we should each bring a youth in order for us to be able to be the change we want to see. For us to be the change we want to see, it must start with us. And for us to be able to bring those youth and expose them to this kind of discussions where we speak about them, but allowing them to speak about them and what challenges them. For us, so that when we speak about solutions, we speak about solutions from what we have heard the youth speak about. Because currently we can speak about what we can see with our naked eyes. You spoke about people telling stories from their pain. And those are the pain points. When we do strategy here, everyone involved, you first start saying what are our pain points. And that's what needs to happen when we bring the youth. Let me crocodile on that, my leader, and then allow other people to giraffe. Thank you.
If you don't mind, just passing it over there.
Thank you. So I think this is like a great meeting. It is my first. And when Angela and I had an interaction, it was like, that's BS. You can't just leave corporate and join government. That's just BS. Who sent you there? And then it got me thinking, and it's my lived experience, is that how do you firstly tell of a, can I get that table over there to just kind of, thanks. So, and I didn't want to explain myself. And if you remember well, I was just like, well, believe what you want to believe. But the whole point of a person like me ingrained in multinationals from the start up until where I was, up until now, is the fact that there must be change. And if we keep sitting in our ivory towers, right? If we keep sitting in meetings where the veterans are sitting by themselves, that then becomes a problem that is prevalent. And I keep saying to my counterparts who are CEOs in SOEs, especially in the digital space, I keep saying to them, well, it's a boys' club. What is a girl like me going to do in a boys' club, right? And there's no space for us. There's no space for females, number one. And then there's no space for females who are coming into the sector, not because there's benefits, but someone needs to fix South Africa. I don't think I have, but I'm looking at the soul of my womb. What will it have when we are done pillaging this country? And these are some of the reasons why some of us abandon corporate and the air cons that comes with corporate, and we come into places where we're saying, let me be the change, let me be the guinea pig then, right? Because they say if there's an appointee of a CE in a SOE, it's a gimmick for a failure, right? So how do I go on with bravery to sit with that? And how do I sit like this in a space where the people that I need to look up to are sitting by themselves? That's fundamental number 3 or number 5 or down the list. But there is no inclusivity for change. And the reason why I'm saying so, and maybe it's because James Brown said this is a man's world, right? And maybe that we need to revisit that song and where it came from. But there is no inclusivity for other genders, not just females, other genders. I mean, when I came in and I said, I want a differently gendered person in my office as an executor in the office of the CEO, everyone said, well, you mean you don't want us in your office? Right? This is the change that needs to happen. And it doesn't happen with us sitting and being comfortable. It doesn't happen in that space. It happens in a space where we are fine with being uncomfortable. We check ourselves because our future depends not on anyone else except us. No one else can fix Africa's problems except Africans. No one can sort out the African leadership issue except the people in this room who are leaders in their various places, and they feel the unction in their spirits to say, not in my lifetime, not with the kind of Africa I want my children to have, my children to resonate with, my children to identify with. But we sit here time and time again, we speak airy-fairy, and we abandon the role that Ndate spoke about, that we are actually stone collectors. And to me, that is a fundamental problem because no one wants to pick the stones. Someone, I think it is, I'll quote the Bible because I'm in that way inclined. So I think it's Nehemiah said, we use the stones that were burnt and not the stones that were just freshly made. So someone needs to be able to pick up the stones that are burned. And someone needs to say, with these stones that are burned, I am willing to come out of the aircons and come and fix the country. Not just the country, because fixing the country then culminates into fixing Africa. We need to start really embracing that mindset of inclusivity, fixing, and being ready to be down and out in fixing, because then you sit as me. I mean, Trevor is a counterpart of mine, but I don't think I've ever had a discussion with Trevor. right? And why? Is it because it is a boys' club and the world is a boys' club that we can't then have a room to freely express ourselves and bring about the change that we think? I mean, it's not about a sex organ, but it's about the capability of, and it is about the leadership that will bring the change. And I think, yes, it's nice and well that we are speaking about this, but are we really touching on? And I liked how even Tate Elijah was speaking about, oh, I said Elijah, yes, was speaking about how they were the anchors and the change shifters. But did it end there? And did that change end with that era? And shouldn't we then say, or shouldn't they be saying, we are looking for people that will be us and replicas? I mean, Elijah had an Elisha. So shouldn't they then be the ones that say, before I step down, I need a replica, maybe one or two of me to be able to carry on the baton that she was talking about. So for me, it's just a comment and maybe really a brain teaser and a heart teaser, because this is a heart conversation. And to say, do we create the environment that we are talking about, or are we just talking about soul and leadership and about picking the stones and about building on the stones that have been lost? Are we just saying those words? And for me, this is really a topic that we really need to take it from the gut up and not from really the head downstairs. Thanks.
Sanbonan. My name is Musa Mahlaba. So my heart is teased. And with that said, there's a lot of things that have been said in the room. And I'm gonna take it to, and I don't know how we got into this conversation, Tato, earlier. But what I'm going to do is, because that's what I do by nature, is connect the dots from some of the things that have been spoken. And from what Andile said, this whole thing of talking sometimes is a bit of a problem. So we sit here right now. The last time I checked, we had 3.2 million roundabout shortage of cybersecurity skills. And that's picking up from the conversation that we had. That's the problem statement on the one hand. That also provides an opportunity for Africa. And I come from the perspective that says, and Bra Elijah can correct me here if I'm wrong, we were one of the first countries, or one of the first countries, to identify business process outsourcing as an opportunity overall. Yet today, that opportunity is being led by India. 10-0. Right? Now, this is about what, 15 years later now, we have the exact same opportunity in cybersecurity. Now, let me then start connecting the dots, and then I'll give you another problem statement that we're sitting with. We have a school that we started a digital program of sorts with probably maths and science students that are in that particular school. We have a gaming program. Psychometrically, a student who is maths and science inclined is likely to gravitate towards gaming and programming. Psychometrically, that same student, if they don't go into gaming, is a likely candidate in a technology field, right? That same student is a likely student that would then would go into an ICT field, but with their downtime, be an educator in the gaming and programming field as well. So think of this 3.2 million shortage of skills globally. that I've just spoken about. This is now an area that's not yet saturated. Huge opportunity for South Africa. Huge opportunity for Africa as a whole. In terms of if we take the original concept of the business process out from the perspective of audibility. At that time, it was a case of you take a typical dialect in South Africa, that person is audible to a person in India, audible to a person in Britain, audible to a person in whichever other country. Now, and the dot I'm connecting here is if we took X amount of students from the school that we've spoken about, took those and made them a direct feeder into the program, right? X amount of students, direct feeder into a program, direct feeder into, I am certain in this room, there's at least 3 or 4 companies that are in ICT, right? Now, again, if you look at the overall budget slice of any organization, private and public sector, in South Africa, Africa, and globally today, and you look at any CEO priorities, cybersecurity sits on top. That's opportunity. That is opportunity as well, right? Now, I've already taken, if you said 5 students end up in a program, 5 students, out of the 5 students, 3 of them end up in a ICT from a training perspective, right? Are being trained. Those are likely 3 students or 2 of the 3 out of the 5 that end up being employed in a particular industry that has a 3.2 million shortage globally. Right? And you take that. Now, let me give you then another challenge that I have then experienced in person, right? In trying to solve that problem, we then set with, and this is, I'm going to make it a bit of a little challenge in that then we were approached as a company by a particular company, training partner, who said, Matlaba, we would like to partner with you in training these cybersecurity skills in South Africa. Guess where we fell short? They couldn't get that partnership going because that particular company is of Israeli descent. And in South Africa, they therefore don't get open to opportunity to train people where there's a shortage of skills, right? So they didn't get that opportunity to then be able. Maybe I didn't knock on right doors. I'll take the blame for that, right? However, if you then look at the flip side of that, then if you had to do any analysis in terms of cybersecurity attacks, this is one of the countries between Israel, Russia, and China that are probably at the top 1, 2, and 3 of being attacked on a second-by-second basis. Every second. If you look at the number of attacks facing Israel, Russia, and China, at any given point they sit in 1, 2, 3. What that means is those skills, those people that we're offering to train are the people that deal with this problem statement on a daily basis, so they know how to train a cyber operative. But we couldn't access that opportunity. It's still open. But that's why I was talking to the ability to then connect dots to say there is a student that's able, there is an opportunity, there is an overall problem statement, in fact, a number of problem statements that could be solved. But that then solves other social problems, including the problem of employment and youth employment overall. And that is an exportable skill as well, over and above that. So from a multiplier effect, solving that problem of unemployment, you could solve that problem twice, 3 times, or 5-fold, because it's an exportable skill. So that's just food for thought. Thanks.
So let me do this, man. And I know that, you see, I normally say that you've got a board meeting. Mr. Mbete, Utumo on the other side. Bob Seth, unless you've got like something pending, which is like 1 minute, because I know your passion. Mr. Mbete, Utumo, ulapha ngasemva mos. So I usually say that there's a board meeting, which has got the company secretary, and then there's the real board meeting, which does not have the company secretary. You see, right now, where we are going to is the board meeting without the company secretary. I'm also very conscious of people's time. I did promise that by 9 o'clock we'll release people. So what I suggest is that, or my commitment is that, is that I'm going to galvanize, whether it's, I don't know what these companies, I don't want to call them McKinsey or funny, you know, but we'll galvanize an entity that we're going to partner with, whereby we are able to have these deliberations, but more importantly is how do we action? For me is how do we then say that we have we're going to, I mean, there's a recording. How do we take all of these inputs? And then when we then present back to the membership of the leadership with the Soul Institute, which is a shell, it then becomes empowered based on the mandate to be able to do what it needs to do. So that is my commitment. Because I see you haven't spoken. You know, if we don't mind just passing the mic over there. Where's my mic, people? No State of the Nation. Like, I really want to close now. I knew him myself.
Thanks. It's Cecil here. I didn't want to say much, but I think you mentioned the Institute as a shell. But then what I didn't pick up is that where are you positioning yourself? Because we cannot have a situation whereby we're talking about cyber skills deficit, whilst at the same time we're accepting a 40% pass rate. How do you accept a 40% pass rate at a high school level when the same institutions at post-school have not even changed their acceptance standards? There's a serious problem there. Right? Now, when you're talking about an institute, if you're going to create leaders, we should be able to create leaders who are going to stand up to things that are not serving society and the country in terms of its future. The second issue is that when you talk about digital skills, we always throw these things around. But are we actually delving deeper and say, let's take for an example, facial recognition technology, or even speech recognition, because everybody else can relate to that. You have an iPhone, you talk to Siri, but your accent is African. It's not going to pick up anything that you're saying. So clearly there's a serious problem there. Isn't that the time that you start looking at creating homegrown technologies that are based on the same algorithms that are actually existing? You're not creating anything new. I mean, if I'm talking Xhosa, it should be able to pick up what I'm doing and what I'm saying. The third point that I want to raise is what was raised around the youth. We always mention the issue of the youth, and we are passionate, all of us, about the youth. But the problem is that we don't have them around the table. We assume that we know what they want. You know, there's a program that we used to have in Kofimva. We went there, introduced tablets, and then realized later that actually the tablets needs to be recharged. We started putting solar panels. And later on, we started going back to the community, and the community said, no, we're looking for sanitation. So it's starting with tablets. People are looking for sanitation, some basic stuff. Now we're talking about the youth as if we know exactly what they want and what future are we setting up for them. That's a serious problem if they're not part of the round table and saying, this is the future that we want. We've already gone past that space. The only thing that we can do is provide wisdom in terms of what experiences we have seen, what are the pitfalls that they need to experience or they need to actually avoid, and how do they need to circumvent certain challenges. So for me, the shell needs to have sort of the base principles that it should not kowtow to certain things. Now, fundamentally, is around the issue of 40% pass rate. For me, for the hell of me, it still doesn't make sense to me at all. If the same lowest so-called Bush universities have not even changed their acceptance standards. All right? So if you're talking about a leadership with a soul institute, what are the principles that are going to be the pillars of that institute and where it will never compromise on those, irrespective of who's in government, period.
Mhlekazi, thank you very much. I think it's, critical what you're saying. So I'm now going to make sure that we close. You see, by the powers vested in me, I have to close because, people are thirsty, people are but more importantly is that people have got load shedding in their homes. They need to make sure that gates are closed and otherwise. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. I think that for me, what's inspiring the most is when I speak about the board meeting, after the board meeting, is that the leaders with a soul, I'm not saying there's anyone excluded, but the people that are here are really now wanting to engage at a deeper level to say, how are we going to be able to do it? And for someone who is going to endure 3 hours of torture or 4 hours of torture, but still be plugged in and engaged, I really want to thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to then, from part of an action item point of view, I'm going to make sure that we're able to tabulate some of these things, some of the suggestions that we have. However, as I said, that it's a shell, but this shell, if it's community driven from the bottom up, it's something that is going to make sure that it's not a talk shop. It is something that each and every one of us own. And fortunately, we've got the case studies. For me, that's what excites me. I brought some of those case studies here. The people that are here are case studies. So fortunately for me is, these are things that have been done. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate the conversation. Let us drink, let's be merry. Like I said, I'm a Rhodes student. I'm going to jump on tables. Thank you very much. Yeah.